Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Apa kabar semua? Ya. Okay, today I will move on to the other aspect of government, that is on the revenue side. So that will be starting with chapter number 10. So if you look at the book, that is the second part of the course. So begin with chapter number 10 and 11, 12. And in fact, it will go on until chapter number 17. Basically, it's about taxation, okay, how the government get the revenue. We are not going to cover all the chapters because of the time limitation. Our focus will be income tax and the sales tax, the price tax. So hopefully I can cover, chapter 11, 12, and the income tax, which is chapter number 14. Yeah, number 14. And chapter 10 is essentially introduction. So I would like you to read chapter number 10. I'm not going to discuss chapter 10 because these are some of the basic concepts. And as we move on, as we cover chapter 11, 14, and 12, we will come across the terms. So we will just, maybe discuss a little bit. So I'm not going to just go through chapter number 10 because some of the terms will pop up again, as we cover the other chapters. So we'll start with chapter number 11. Now, this is about the revenue side of the government. So before we discuss the proper chapter, we will look at the government sources of revenue. All right. So I will show you one slide here. This is the sources of the government revenue. You call it hasil kerajaan, okay, federal government. The government revenue in millions of dollars. And these are the different sources. And the total revenue the government earn, okay, are given in the last row here. So for 2016, 17, 18, up to 19. And you can see here, this is the total. And if you go further up the column, this will be the components. Now looking at the components, generally there are two types. One is the direct tax, indirect tax, and of course you have the non-tax revenue. All right, non-tax revenue. But the main component or the main source of the government are the tax. Either it is direct or indirect. Now you look at the direct tax. So direct tax consists of what? There are a few components. You have income tax, which consists of the individual income tax. So this is individual based on our income and income and wealth. And then you have the companies or the corporate income tax. And then you have petroleum, all right, petroleum, and then others. If you look at the other direct tax, these are the duties or the government taxes coming from, other sources, stamp duty, property gain tax, things like that. If you look at the indirect tax, you have export tax, export duties. And then you have the excise tax, the sales tax, service tax, and other type of taxes. So you have export, import, and then you have the excise, sales tax, service tax. And the total is here for 2016 about 59.7 billion. And then the direct tax is about 109.6 billion. So direct tax, by far is larger than the indirect tax. And of course, if you look at the direct tax, the largest component is the income tax. And if you break out the income tax, you'll see the corporate income tax contribute about 50% more, than the individual income tax. And of course, you have the petroleum tax. Okay. And then if you look at the sales tax and the direct, not direct, and the duties, these are the numbers. So you have the goods and services tax. Yeah. Now this is, I think this was a GST. GST was implemented a few years during Datuk Sri Najib period, but now we don't have anymore. So what we have now is the sales tax and the service tax. GST was special kind of tax. So if you look at 16, 17, the sales tax and the service tax are very small. Why? Because most of the taxes are in form of GST. Okay. But if you want to see the taxes, before the GST, I think we have to move back to look at 2014, 2013. Okay, before the implementation of the GST, then you'll see the sales tax and the excise tax will be much higher, lah. All right. Okay. Even here, already in 2019, I think 2019 we already do not have the GST under the new government, the PH government. So you see here the sales tax, the service tax are increasing. And the GST is not there. All right. So that's the components of the taxes. So these are the sources of the government revenue. And of course, you also have the non-tax revenue. So non-tax revenue coming from other sources other than taxes. So that one, we are not going to look into that. Now, our focus would be not the magnitude of the tax, what we are going to do here is we're going to discuss, right, as per chapter 11 and 14, a type of tax that we have here. We are going to discuss the individual income tax, which is chapter 11. And then chapter number 14, you have the, I'm sorry. Chapter 11 is on the indirect tax. Would be the sales tax and the, basically sales tax. All right, so it's the indirect tax on the price. So that is chapter 11. Chapter 14, we're going to look at the income tax, individual. And then there is another chapter that will look at the corporate income tax. So that would be our focus. Now we're not going to discuss about, how big is them. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at the type of tax. We are going to look at the effect. Okay, what are the effect of those taxes on the market? In other words, on the economy. And then we're going to look at what is the effect on the individual itself, all right, on the economic agent itself. And then we're going to also to look at the incentive that the tax create. Now, when you have tax, you pay tax. There is a tendency for us to change our behavior. Right? That is also, how the tax will affect the individual. Okay, in terms of how they change their behavior. So basically that is our concern. Okay, when we discuss the chapters on the taxation. So we are going to analyze, all right, the effect of this tax on the taxpayer themselves and also on the market. So that is our approach. Okay. Now, any question about this distinction? Okay, good. So let's move on. In terms of the chapter, this is on chapter number 11. Now, chapter number 11 is the price tax, indirect tax, and the taxes on the price. So firstly, we're going to look at the analysis of the tax from the individual perspective. Okay, how it affects the individual. So that is our first discussion. Next, we're going to see how it affects the economy or the market. But before that, what is a tax? What is a tax? So we're going to discuss chapter number 11. What is a tax?
Government's income.
That is one of the, you can say, that's income to the government. All right. Okay, what else? That is not very accurate, but actually that can give you some idea. Okay, that's income to the government. Now, tax is what? Tax is compulsory payment. It's compulsory, or sometimes people say involuntary, but probably involuntary is too strong a word that we use. I think compulsory may make more sense. Payment to some authority, some people in power. Okay, example, government, but may not be necessarily government, but to some authority, some people of authority or some group of authority. Compulsory involuntary payment to by what? By the individuals or firms or institutions. And then, that payment does not guarantee does not guarantee, does not guarantee the payer, the taxpayer, the payer, and equivalent value of goods and services in return or in exchange. So there are two parts here. Okay, number one, it's a compulsory payment, or sometimes even involuntary, because you don't want to pay, but you have to force. You are forced to pay to some authority. That means to some group of people or an institution of authority. For example, government. By whom? By individual firms or any member of the society. So that is first part. Now, when we say authority, that does not necessarily mean government. It can be any people, anybody. If you look at a certain group or certain society, it's not just the government who is in authority. You look at a smaller component, smaller group of society. There are some other people who are in authority into that neighborhood. Okay, and then they collect tax. So who are they? Anybody has idea? If you watch movie, you come across this kind of people.
IRA.
IRA, Irish. You mean IRA, Irish Revolutionary?
No.
Itu kan?
The internal tax internal revenue.
That is the government.
Revenue agency.
That's the government. That's the government. Of course, that's the government. Now, I'm talking about other people than government. They have some authority, sometimes illegal. They collect tax. Who are these people? Gangster, gangster.
Some say
if you watch movie, some gangsters in a certain neighborhood, they go to these people, the firm, the shops, collect tax, what they call it protection money, So these are authority, and you are forced to pay. You don't want to pay, but it's compulsory on you. And of course, this is illegal, all right? But not necessarily the government is collecting the tax. It can be anybody who has some authority and people are scared of them. So the government, of course, the government, as an institution chosen by the people by default, they have the power, okay, by the constitution. They have the power to collect taxes. So you have to pay. If you don't pay, probably you will get some penalty, some punishment. Okay, but what I want to say here, we're talking about some authority that does not necessarily be the government. It can be some group of people. For example, gangster, group of group mana-mana kat kampung pun ada. In the kampung sometimes a group of ini orang budak lihat. Okay. So that's one. Number two, that payment is not like when you purchase goods and services. When you purchase goods and services, you pay the payment, all right? You receive an equivalent value of the good. All right, let's say you pay $5 for ice cream, you have $5 value of ice cream, more or less. Okay, but when you pay taxes, let's say you pay 100 ringgit in tax, that does not guarantee you an equivalent value of service that you will get in return. So that is the second criteria. So sometimes people pay taxes, say 10,000 ringgit. You are not guaranteed that you'll get benefit in terms of the public goods or some other goods provided by the government. The value will be 1000. Okay, not necessarily. Or sometimes people pay 1,000 in tax. you may not get the equivalent value. Now, if you look at the comparison between these two things, these two people, the people who pay, or the person who pay 1,000 in tax, he may get more. Okay, he may got more value than the tax that he paid in return. And if you compare to the person who paid 10,000, he may get less. All right. So when you say not guaranteed to pay an equivalent value, it can be more. Okay, it can be less. So normally, people who pay more taxes, they may get less. People who pay a smaller amount of taxes, sometimes they may get more. So that's the idea of a tax. All right. Okay. Good. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the type of tax, which we call the price tax, or we're going to look at the price tax that is on chapter number 11. But also, they're going to introduce to us, this chapter, the income tax. All right. So focus, of course, will be on the price tax, but also we touch a little bit on the income tax. So that is chapter number 11. Focus is on the indirect tax, which is the price tax. And then a little bit of the income tax, because we have to make some comparison. Now, what we want to do is we're going to look at we're going to discuss the tax from the individual perspective. How does it affect the individual? All right, the effect on individual. So here we're going to make use of the model, utility maximization model. Okay, utility maximization model, where utility, or where the individual, or here in this case the taxpayer, maximize utility given the budget line. So here there are two things that we need to review. I will go, to review this. So we know the individual. How do the individual behave? We maximize utility subject to what? Subject to the budget line. Okay, subject to the income, or you maximize utility subject to the income or the budget line. So here there are two things. One is utility, all right, and second is the budget line. Now let us review the budget line, just to, because we're going to look at the budget line analysis. So we want to know, or we want to make sure that we know how the budget line shift given a change in price and a change in income. Now, budget line is the income. So let's say you have a certain amount of income, call it M, right? That's the M curve Y. I think the book used Y, so we use Y. I like to use M, because M I use in business. Look at the book. I think pakai Y kot. Pakai Y, kita kena Y. Ataupun dia pakai I. So, let me see. Kita pakai apa? Big ni. Standing Y. And then Y expenditure on aggregate. Big Y. Yelah, dia pakai Y. I think I use M je lah. Okay, so the income is M or use I, and for a period of time, this income is fixed. So you have limited budget. Let's say in a month or in a year. Normally we call it year, correct? And you assume fixed income, and you have the goods. And here we only consider two goods or services, call it X and Y. Now these are the variables. How can we consume X and Y given the income? And the prices of X and Y, we call it PX, PY. So the price of X is PX, the price of Y is PY. Therefore, our income line, I think I use I. Income line would be I equal to PXX plus PYY. Okay? Now, there are two goods, X and Y, and these are the variables, the thing that change. All others, the income, the prices, they are fixed, they are constant. Okay, there's a constant. So example, like if our income per month is 2,000, and then there are two goods, okay, X and Y, and the prices are given as 50 ringgit, so 50, and the other good, Y, say the price is 34, so you got that. That is an example of the budget line. All right. Now this budget line, how does it look like? Now when you draw the graph of the budget line, normally we put it, since there are two variables, X and Y, so you draw the graph, you have Y as a function of X. So that would be our budget line. And then the graph would be like this. Okay, this is X, this is Y. So that is the zero. So when you have that thing, you look at the budget line again. So what I have is PYY equal to the income, which is constant, minus PXX. So Y is equal to I over PY minus PX over PY multiplied by X. So the income, or this is the budget line, call it B, would be what? How does it look like? It will look like this. The intercept on the y-axis is I over PY. That's the intercept. And the slope is negative PX over PY. So that's the slope. That's the intercept. So the budget line, if you recall, will be like this. Okay? So you'll see the slope here is negative. And of course, the intercept is positive. Now, what is, okay, before we do that, we go back to our example. Now, when you go back to our example, you write in terms of the y in terms of x, then that would be, if we equal to what? You have y equal to 2,000 minus 50x divided by 34 divided by 34. Okay? So if you look at the intercepts, that will be the intercept. 2,000 divided by 34, dapat berapa?
$58.82.
Saya kalkulator ada tapi baru nak buka.
58.82, sir.
Berapa dapat?
58.82.
88 dah. So 88. So that will be about 88 lah. Okay, so y equal to 88 point?
Sir, 58.
58. Tak ada point. Okay, good.
58.82.
0.82x minus, okay, the 50 over 34 itu berapa? 1 point berapa?
1.47.
1.47 x. Oh, here there is no x lah. So that is the budget line. Will be like this lah. Okay. So that is example. All right. Now, what is the intercept? This has important implication here. I over py. What is this? This is called the real income. All right. Now, real income is not in money terms. It is in real. Okay. In terms of what? In terms of the goods, either y or x. All right. So if you have I over py, it's the income divided by the price of y. So you look at the income, the unit for income is RM or dollars. The unit for the price is RM per unit of y. Okay. So you divide that. What we have is unit of y. So I over py is the real income in y. Okay, I over py is your real income in terms of y. So that would be the real income. In terms of y, it's not in terms of money. So what I get is, for that example, the real income I over py is equal to 58.82. What is this? This is y, units of y. Okay, so if I spend all my income on y, that is how much I get. All right, so what does it mean? It means that if you spend all income, all money income on y, then how much I get? I get 58.82 units of y. So that is our real income in terms of y. And of course, you can also measure the real income in terms of x. So that will be the real income I over px. That will be the real income in terms of x. In other words, how much x can I buy if I spend all my income on x? Okay, so I over px, you divide 2,000 by berapa tu harga dia? By 50. All right, so you get what? 2,000 divided by 50, you get 40. Is that right? So that will be 40. So if I spend all my money on x, I will get 40 units of x. So that is real income. So in economics, real income is the one that, our main discussion is about real income. It's not about money income. It's about real income. You adjust for the price. Okay, given the price, then given the money income, you will have a certain amount of purchasing power. So that real income is more realistic. Okay, that's real income. Now, what about px over py? And of course, there's a negative sign here. So that's the slope. Now, what is the slope? Tell you. Okay, the slope is equal to negative px over py. Of course, sometimes, you don't put the negative sign, but we know, there is a negative sign there. Now, when you have a negative sign, that means there will be a trade-off. All right, trade-off. Meaning that if I want to get more of one good, what do I have to do with the other good? I have to reduce the other good. All right. So if I want to increase y, then what about x? X we have to reduce. Okay. So that is trade-off. That means they move in the same in the different direction. Or in other words, y go down, x will increase. because of the negative sign. Now you look at the slope. We call this slope the price ratio. So the price ratio will tell you the trade-off, the rate of trade-off. How many units of one good we're going to sacrifice in order to get another unit of the other good. All right. So if you look at the price ratio, you got the RM, the unit RM per unit of X. That is the unit of the price of X. Now, what is the unit of the price of Y? RM per unit of Y. Now you divide that, simplify. What is it equal to? That is equal to the unit of Y divided by what? The unit of X. Because the RM and RM will cancel out. I think, kita betul ni, saya check. RM per X. You divide by RM per Y. So that will be equal to RM per X multiplied by Y per RM. Betul lah. RM cancel out, you got Y over X. So units of Y divided by units of X. Okay? And you have a negative sign here. So that means if I want to increase X by 1 unit, if I want to consume X by 1 more unit, then what happened to Y? What should I do to Y? I have to sacrifice, okay, some units of Y. All right, I have to let go. Okay, I have to let go because it's a trade-off. Okay, trade-off means you have to you want to have one good more, you have to have less of the other good because given the fixed income, so you have to let go some units of Y, and that amount of Y that you let go will be given by what? Be given by the price ratio. Okay, so let's go back to the example. What is the price ratio that we have? You have what? Negative, price of X is 50, right? Price of Y is 30, 34, 35. 34. So, berapa dapat tu? 50 over 34.
1.7.
Ya, balik lain.
1.47.
Betul ke tu? Okay, 50 over 34, you got negative 50 over 34. So 50 over 34, negative 1 berapa ni?
1.47.
1.47. So what does it mean? It means that if I want to increase X, if I want to consume 1 more unit of X, then I have to let go some units of Y. Then that will be what? If you look at by that example, then I have to sacrifice or let go 1.47 of Y. So that is the trade-off. All right. I want to increase X by 1 unit, I have to let go 1.47 of Y. Okay. Now suppose, okay, so that is the price ratio, or we call it also sometimes relative price. Okay, now you can play around with this. Suppose the price of one good increases, what happened to the price ratio? So the price ratio give you the trade-off. All right, so that's budget line. Now, when you look at the budget line, again, what about if? Okay, if I have here the budget line, I equal to, in terms of y, and x be that one. Now, what happens if the constants, all right, the constants changes? Suppose our income now increases. Now, it's a constant, of course. Over a period of time, it's a constant. But when the time change, that income can change. So suppose over time, this period, maybe our income is 2,000. Due to the COVID-19, income, we have less work, income decreases, okay, or income can increase. So example, if due to COVID-19, our income go down to say 1,000, then what happened to the budget line? What happened to the budget line? Anybody?
Shift to the left, right?
You shift to the left, all right? The budget line decreases, or the budget line, the income decreases. So this is the basic. I think maybe you recall from from the principle. When the budget line or when the income goes down, the budget will be shifting to the left. Or if you want to make sure, you go back to our budget line, okay? The price of Y was 34, price of X is 50. So the one that changed is the income. So now the income is 1,000. So you can see here the real income is not 2,000 over PY, which is 34. Now it has moved to, or has changed to 1,000 over 34. So 1,000 over 34 would be less than that point. So you have, so there is no change in the price ratio. So there will be parallel shift, all right? Parallel shift. So income goes down, you have the shift to the left, all right? So income decreases, you have a decrease in the budget line. So the budget line or short form budget line decreases. Now, what about if the income goes up? Sometimes some people, due to the COVID-19, our income does not necessarily go down. People gain. Maybe he do some online business, selling face masks or selling cookies, income increases, say 4,000. Now, what happened to the budget line? The budget line will shift upward. All right. So the shift of the budget line, up or down, that will depend on the change of the income. Okay, that's number one. Number two, what about if the price change? Okay, what about if the price change? So I would like you to go to the graph and look at what happened if the price change. All right. So you compare back to the budget line, initial budget line. Our initial budget line, you have 2,000 equal to 34Y plus 50. Now suppose the price of X increases, say to 100, to 100, 100, okay, to 100 RM. All right. Now what happened to the budget line? Okay, I want you to do it. I know probably you know what is the shift. I want you to come up with the new budget line. The price of X is now 100, and see, okay? See how does the budget line shift, and show it on the graph. Okay, okay, do it now. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, how does the budget line change? If the price of X now goes up, this is our original budget line, okay? Because the one that we consider at the beginning. Now the price of X goes up to, yeah, I put there 100. Okay, what happened to the budget line? How is the shift?
It will rotate, but the point at I over PI is constant, tapi only the point at I over PX is.
Okay, there is no change in the real income in terms of Y, because PY doesn't change, all right? So that intercept on the Y-axis is still the same. The only change is the price of X. So it will affect only the price ratio, all right? So the effect is on the price ratio only. So if you look at that example, you will see here I over PY. Now, real income in terms of Y, all right? No change. But if you look at the PX over PY, there is a change. Because now it has 100 over 34. Okay, so the slope changed. Now, when the slope changed, if you look at the value here now becomes negative 2 point something, right? 2 point 100 divided by 34, 2.94. So absolute value, it becomes steeper lah. Okay. But a simpler way, of course, the slope is different. So, there is a shift, there is some kind of shift. Another way to look at it, a simpler way, is look at the real income in terms of the X. In other words, the X intercept. Now that is equal to what now? Equal to 2000 divided by 100. So that will be equal to 20. So due to the higher price in X, if I spend all my money on X, I will be able to spend, I will be able to buy less X. Why? Simply because the price of X goes up. But if I spend all my money on Y, that doesn't change. Okay, so that is 20. So therefore, the budget line would shift inside, but it's not a parallel shift. It's a like rotation shift. So you have the y-intercept remain the same here. The slope is now steeper, absolutely. Then that will be the new budget. Call it B2. So now that is the intercept I over PX has decreases. Okay, so you'll get that kind of shift. You call it rotational shift. All right, it will rotate about the y-axis. So it's rotate about the y-intercept. All right, and then of course you will have move to the left. Okay, leftward shift. Okay, so the real income in terms of X would change. All right, if the price of X decreases, okay, then what happened to the budget line? Again, here, the real income in terms of Y do not change. You only have the real income in terms of X now becomes higher. You can buy more X. So therefore, the shift will be like that. So if if there is a price change, you will be a rotational shift. All right, rotational shift of on the good whose price do not change. So in this case, we just consider Y or X, because if you consider X, it's easier to look at. You can also look at if the price change is Y. So you can play around with the budget line. So what you can do, just want to make sure or understand better the rotational shift. What you can do, maybe you look at where a case, second possibility, the price of Y increases. So now let's say 50. And then the price of Y decreases, say now to 20. So you can see how they rotate. Okay, rotational shift in the budget line. All right, any question? All right, good. Now utility, so that's the budget line. Because when we talk about tax, the price tax, the budget line will shift. So, we should be able to show the shift right away. All right. So that's why we go through the shift of the budget line. Now, the utility function is U, and it's just a function of X and Y. Now, this utility function is shown by the indifference curve. The indifference curve is a normal indifference curve. If you recall, our indifference curve is looking like what? It's looking like indifference curve. Indifference curve. If I draw it here, or that budget, that diagram already too crowded. So indifference curve, we normally draw it like this. This is X, Y, 0. Indifference curve like that. Okay, so that is U0. And if our utility has increased, so your utility will go up. Utility decrease, utility will go down to U2. Okay, so U0 to U1, U increase. U0 to U2, that means utility decreases. Okay, so this is the standard. Of course, some cases, special case, you may have your utility function macam tu straight line je, right? But we will look at the regular kind of utility function. Okay, all right, good. So given that, if you want to look at the effect of a tax, all right, on the individual, so we are going to look at how it affect, okay, how it affect ourselves, as a taxpayer or as an individual who consume this good, and how it affect our utility, and how it affect the consumption of X and Y from the utility maximization perspective. So that is what we're going to look at first, first model. Now let's say we impose a tax on the good X. So here we're going to look at the price tax. Also called, if you look at the book, it's the unit tax. It's tax on the unit of a good. All right. And suppose the tax is imposed on the price of X. So you have the price tax, or we call it, also can use excise tax, So that is imposed on the tax, on the price. So we call that tax, call it T. And T, the unit is RM per unit of X. So that's why you call it per unit tax. So we just call it price tax or unit tax. And example, T is equal to 1.5. So in other words, the T here is $1 or 1 ringgit 50 cent per X lah, per unit of X, per unit. Okay, per unit of X. All right, so we call it that tax. Now, it's not in terms of percentage. The other tax that we use is the tax is equal to not the money unit, it's percentage. So the tax can be what? Can be equal to 2% of the price of X, of the price of X. So that is another one. Okay, we don't look at this one now. Okay, we look at only the money unit on the tax, on the price. So this is an example of the price tax. So we look at the model that you have. Suppose the tax is imposed on the good of X. Okay, I already put that price of X. Y is not X. That tax is T. So now, what happened to the price of X? The tax is imposed on the price of X. So let's say before the tax, okay, initially means before lah. Okay, before the tax, the price of X, we call it PX. Or we can use PX0, macam apa? PX0. PX0. Put 0 here. Okay, after the tax, T, what is the price of X? That will become what? We call it PX. Okay, call it PX1, because that is our tax, or you can call it PT. Okay, or P1T. What is it equal to? It's equal to PX before the tax, 0 plus T. Okay. So in other words, what about the price of X? The price of X will simply increases. So in simple term, due to the tax, the price of X will go up. Okay. The price of X will go up. So want to see, okay, what is the effect of the tax on the individual? And we assume the individual is maximizing utility. Or if we go back to our example, all right, the price of X is 50. Okay, the tax is imposed 1.5. 1.5. Price is 50, quite high, you know. We normally don't impose tax 1.5. The minimum we impose, put it 10 ringgit. Okay, so change it to 10. So let's say the price is equal to 10. I mean the tax now equal to 10. So the new price, so for example here, the price PX0 is equal to 10. All right, that is the example lah. No, not 10, 50. After the tax, which is equal to 10, what is the price after tax? We can call it PX1, or you can call it PXT pun tak apa kak, you know, or you just call it PT. So that will be equal to what? PX0 plus the tax. So what is it equal to? Equal to 50 plus 10. So in other words, the price just simply go up by the tax. So now what is the new price? New price is 60.
60.
Okay. So now you want to see how does that tax affect the individual in terms of his utility and also in terms of his consumption of the good X, and of course, Y. All right. All right. So let's do that. So now what we do, we go back to the budget line analysis. You have to make the comparison, or you're going to do the comparative statistics for the two equilibrium. One is before the tax, the other is after the tax. So let's say you have that thing. So call this B0. So before the tax, the budget line is B0. The utility function, say here, is U0. So we say here before tax or initially. Okay. The budget line is B0. Call it budget line. Okay. Budget equal to B0. Utility U0. Equilibrium. Okay. Call it E equal to E0. Over here. So that is our E0. And you have our consumption point X0, Y0. So X equal to X0, Y equal to Y0. Okay, so that is our initial consumption. Initial consumption point or initial consumption combination. I know how much we consume X and how much we consume Y. Now before, no, not before now, after the tax. Okay, after the tax is imposed, which is T. Okay, going back to what we were doing earlier, what happened to the price of X? Now, Y, there is no tax. Okay, the one that we tax is only X. So what happened to the budget line of the budget line? What happened to the budget line?
Rotate.
We rotate how?
Kalau decrease.
You know, we rotate inside. Okay, so the rotation is inside. In other words, after the tax, you know, think of it, the price goes up. Okay, the price of X goes up. So when the price of X goes up, price of Y do not change. You know how the rotation is. Okay, all right. So you'll see the budget line will shift or will rotate inside. So that is our B1. So after the tax, the price of X essentially increases, okay, by the amount of the tax. So as we can see from the budget line, okay, the price of X now becomes PX0, the initial price, plus the T. Okay, so the higher price of X. So when there is a higher price of X, there will be that kind of rotation. So the budget line now B1 and the indifference curve, you will see here U1. Tak cantik. Draw balik. Draw sikit lagi. Draw semula. My diagram U tu. Tak. You have to draw it nicely. Dia macam tu. That's the budget line. Okay. Okay, that's nice. Tak ni lagi tu. Aduh, penat lah. Okay, when you draw, make sure you touch the budget line nice. Ni kena practice. Saya pun dah lama tak buat ni. Cuti panjang ni tu. Will be like that. That's U1. That's U1. Over here. Okay, equilibrium be there. So we call that equilibrium E2. You get X1 and then Y1. Okay, the budget line is B1 due to the shift, the rotational shift. Okay, equilibrium now is E1. E0 ni, T0. Equilibrium is E1. X equal to X1, Y equal to Y1. All right. So you do the comparative statics. Ini E1 tau, bukan E2. Sorry. Saya pula saya tulis E2. Patutnya E1 ya. Okay, that is E1. And then utility now is U1. Okay. All right. I want you to make the comparative statics. You compare the equilibrium. Okay? The two equilibrium, E1 and E0. What can you say about this individual after we introduce the tax on the price of X?
The person will be able to consume more Y and less X.
Okay, number one, we'll see that X will be increased. Okay, so X will be increased because you will know, no, X will be increased. X is decreased.
X
Is the
decreases.
good that you tax. So it's it's just common sense. The X is taxed. So therefore, normally, rationally, if we behave rationally, we consume less X. Okay. Of course, there are some goods, that behavior may not change, but normally, okay, we're looking at normal good. Okay, X decreases because X1 is less than X0. So that is number one. So number one, we reduce, okay, consumption of X. That is the tax good. Okay, the tax good. Number two, what about Y? You can see here, Y increases because Y1 is bigger than Y0. All right, so you can see here, increased consumption of Y, the good that is not taxed. And then what is number three?
Equilibrium is higher.
Apa dia?
The equilibrium move from E0 to E1.
Of course, that one we know already. Yang tu tak payah cakap lah.
The utility curve shifted
The
to the
utility,
left, inwards.
the utility or our satisfaction level or utility level now also change. All right. So if you look at the utility, you compare U1 and U2, what can you say?
Was off.
You are worse off. Okay. So due to the tax, our utility level will now go down. All right. Go down meaning our utility will be reduced. So utility will go down from U0 to U1. So the other observation here is utility decreases, all right? Because U1 is less than U0. So we are worse off. due to the tax, you are made worse off. Okay, our satisfaction level now go down. All right, so this is important. These three things are important. Number one, due to the tax, first thing that happened is what? Utility will go down. Okay, our total utility level will decrease. It's simply because of the tax. Now, number two, the good that is taxed. The price of X or the X, where you tax on the price of X, the consumption of X will go down, will be reduced. And then what happened to the Y? Normally, normally the consumption of Y will increase a little bit. All right. Okay. So what happened here? Why the when the consumption of X is reduced, you can see straightforward. That is due to the higher price of X. When the higher price of X, you will see the real income in terms of X will go down. All right. So here you look at the number one. Okay, the amount of X decreases. You can look at it from the real income in terms of X. So that will go down. Why? Because the price of X increases. Okay, the price of X increases, the income doesn't change. Therefore, the real income now decreases. So due to the tax, okay, the price of X increases. Ceteris paribus. That means other things don't change. You will see the real income, okay, in terms of X will reduce. I'm not talking the real income in terms of Y, okay? Talking about real income reduce. If you want, you put the word ceteris paribus. You know ceteris paribus? Everything else remain the same. We only change the price of X. The price of Y remain the same. The income level remain the same. Now for the number two, Y increases.
Because the budget line is constant.
Yeah, the budget line is constant. Budget line constant, that will not have a big effect. Why?
I mean the income.
We consume more. Why? A little bit.
Because of the substitution effect.
Because of the trade-off. All right. Because of the relative price. Okay. Now, when the price of X increases, the relative price now changes. Okay. Now, the price of X increases relatively. Relatively means relative to the Y. So when the price of X increases, price of Y do not change. That means the price of X relatively has gone up. What about the price of Y? The price of Y now remain the same. Okay, remain the same. So in other words, Y cheaper. Y now cheaper. So there will be, like our classmate said, there will be substitution. When the price of Y is cheaper relatively to the other good, you substitute to the cheaper good. Okay, so you substitute Y for X, or you substitute X for Y, substitute Y for X. Sometimes benda ni pun saya pun pening. Substitute ni you use
Y for X.
You substitute Y for X. Okay, so substitute Y for X. In other words, I will consume now more Y. All right? Why? Because the price of Y relatively cheaper. We're not talking about absolutely. We're talking about relative. Even though the price of Y may be higher than X, I'm sorry, even the price of X may be higher than Y. But now price of X relatively becomes higher due to the tax. All right. So there will be some substitution. So that's why you have the Y increases because of the substitution. All right. Okay. Any other question? I think this one, this one, the real income increases here. Yeah, I will check again, but I think this is the income effect. Okay, the income effect here. You have less income, and here the price effect. All right, so that is the price effect. I'm going to check again where you have the substitution. Okay, so that would be the effect. But anyhow, more importantly, or I mean intuitively, due to the tax, the price of X now becomes higher. So therefore, the real income in terms of X will be lower. We will consume less X. All right. Now, Y increases. Why? Because substitution effect. The price of X relatively now become higher. In other words, X relatively become more expensive. So therefore, we substitute Y for X. And of course, this diagram is very important because this diagram is where you base your argument in at. All right. So that's why I discussed about the shift of the budget line so that we'll be able to argue. Okay. We'll be able to argue in terms of how the budget line shift and then how it affects the equilibrium. And then we can do the comparative statistics. All right. So that is the effect of a price tax on the individual. Number one is simply the reduction in the utility. We are going to be worse off due to the tax. Number two, the goods that are taxed, we consume less. And the other good, due to the substitution effect, we consume a little bit more, right? So that would be the effect. Okay. Any question? Anything? Okay. Now we are already in the second half of the semester. All right. Today is Wednesday, right? Today is
Tuesday.
Tuesday. I thought we have a class. Is this the second week after the break, or is this the?
We are currently at week 8, sir.
Yeah, week 8.
And we have 5 weeks left.
Betul lah tu. We have week 8. Week 8. Yeah, we've already finished week 7. Betul lah. Hari ni berapa bulan ini? Hari ni 8 hari bulan. Betul lah. We are already week number 8. In the second half, we are already week number 2. So we have 4 more weeks left. All right, 4 more weeks left. I want to schedule the the midterm. So midterm, I will make it next week. All right, week number 3. Okay, week 10. Week 10 of the semester, week 3. Lepas tu, you have only 3 more weeks. So that's why I want to make it next week. Next week. Boleh next week lah. Today is Tuesday. Okay, so I think I will make it next week. I think enough time. We'll make it next week on Thursday. Okay. So I just discussed about the quiz. So I think everything is still fresh with you. So next week we're going to have the midterm. You know, everything look so compact this semester.
So can we have it on Friday?
No, we cannot, because if I want to reschedule to another day, I cannot satisfy everybody. Okay, because Friday sometimes some people have classes, so that's the problem. All right, so I'm tired of rescheduling, because especially online now, you know, I cannot see people, so sometimes they just keep quiet. And after I give the test, they will say, I cannot come because I didn't take the test because I have another class. But they are so shy to tell me, you know, until after the test. So that's what I don't like. People, they may have problem, but they just keep quiet. After the test, only they tell me. So that's the problem. So that it's not that I don't want to do it on Friday, you know. To me, I'm okay with it. But the problem is there will be people who, you know, they have other things on Friday, and they will come to see me after 2 weeks of the test. They didn't tell me before the test. They didn't say during the discussion. Everybody, not everybody lah, they will just keep silent, you know. So these are the, what do you call it? The median voter, you know. They are the silent group, but they are important, you know. So that's the thing. So if I schedule it in the class time, there'll be no excuse. You don't come, you don't come, okay? That is not my fault, because it's already class time. So that's the thing. If there is a need later on to make extra class, I will do extra class. Okay, but the test, we cannot do other time. Well, I'm sorry, because of that problem. Okay.
Understood, sir. So to confirm, it will be also 1 hour and 20 minutes, is it?
Yeah. No, I give you only 1 hour. Okay. 1 hour, and then that 1 hour and 10 minutes, maybe 1 hour 10 minutes or 1 hour 50 minutes. Not 15. I'm sorry. 1 hour 10 minutes maximum. Okay, and then I give you the extra 10 minutes to submit. So that will be on Thursday, the 17th. Okay, 17 December. So the coverage would be whatever that I can cover up to Thursday, 10, 12, maybe some part of the chapter, of the current chapter lah, you know. All right. I want to, you know, I want to raise up this thing. Maybe I will show you some example. But when you submit the homework or any work, you know, when you submit the thing to the classroom, most of you submit in, I do not know what do you call it, okay? But when you submit the email, I got the sheets like that. And then if I zoom, they will zoom the whole page. Okay? The whole page will be zoomed. So that is good. Now, most people do this. I will show you some example later. I don't know what is the term. Now, there are a few people, quite a number, not few, not quite a number. You show me that page. Initially, it will be very small. When I zoom, okay, they will show you only half the page. That half page cannot be seen on the screen. If I want to show, I want to see the whole page, I got to reduce the zoom, and then I cannot read. Okay, so if I zoom, for me to read, they show half a page. I cannot see the other half. If I reduce it, I cannot read because it's too small. So this one, don't send me as the second type, okay? Send me at the first type. So if you send me like this, learn how to do it this way lah. Okay, I will show you an example because today I forgot. I want to look at that because some people, you send me that way, I ask you to resend. It's a problem, you know. One page, okay lah, you know. But if there are a few pages, it's a problem. And then I cannot read actually, because when I zoom, they only show half a page, normally on the top. I cannot see the bottom. So therefore, you send me like the first option. The whole thing, if I zoom, I can see the whole page, bigger. Okay. So I don't know what is the method, but I think for this one, maybe you use one file, okay? Or you use one file, I can see like that. But I will share to you the problem next time. Okay, all right. I'll see you again. Today is Tuesday, so we have another class on Thursday. Maybe after the midterm, I'll give you another homework. Okay, all right. So I will see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.